Before you buy an iPhone 13, there are a few things that I think are really worth considering. So the Apple event just wrapped up where they announced a ton of new products, including the iPhone 13 mini, the regular 13, the Pro Max Chungus edition, as well as stuff like the new iPads and the Apple Watches. But I think the decision between which iPhone, if you are considering upgrading to the 13 this year, is way easier to make than it's been in previous years. Okay, so let's start out with what's actually new with the iPhone 13. So there's some new colors. So specifically there's red, black, blue, gray, and sunrise, which I think is the replacement for like rose gold. So the camera bump has been slightly changed. So unlike the 12 mini, which has the vertical cameras, it has them as like a horizontal thing. And that's because you now have an upgraded module, not only with the main camera, but also you have sensor shift, which was originally from the 12 Pro Max. We'll talk about the camera stuff later. There also are some other aesthetic changes on the front of the display. So the notch across the entire iPhone 13 range has now been shrunken. Now, look, until I see this in person, I will reserve judgment. It looks very similar to me. You'll probably notice it more on the Mini, where it was basically like 2/3 of the top of the display. But hey, you know what? A smaller notch is better, even though, of course, no notch would be best. The display has also been upgraded, so it's about 28% brighter, so you're looking at about 800 nits in standard usage and up to 1200 nits for peak brightness. Very nice, not really a huge concern, but what you don't get on the display is ProMotion. Skipping ahead a little bit, the iPhone 13 Pro and Pro Max this year finally get high refresh rate displays at a smooth 120 frames per second. So one of the big things is that it does have an Apple A15 Bionic chip. Surprise, surprise! After the A14 comes the A15. Now it is the same general layout. So you have 2 high performance cores, 4 low performance cores or efficiency cores, and you have a 4-core GPU. However, again, unlike last year, where the Pro and the regular iPhones had the same 60 Hz display and the same specs, the Pro models actually have slightly more powerful GPUs. So on the iPhone Pro as well as Pro Max, this year you're getting a 5-core GPU as opposed to the 4-core on the standard iPhone 13. They've always had the exact same chip across all the iPhones, right? So if you have an A15, it is the exact same, or an A14 or an A13. But this year, if you purchase the standard iPhone 13 mini or the standard iPhone 13, you're getting a less performant chip than on the Pro. But that being said, they didn't really make it seem like the A15 was a huge jump anyway. So traditionally they look at the A15 compared to last generation and be like, oh, it's 713% faster. Well, the quotes that I got here were the A15 is the fastest CPU in any smartphone, which is not a surprise because the A14 was. But they say it's 50% better than the competition on the CPU side and 30% faster on the GPU side on the 4-core. I can believe those numbers. But what I also believe is that it's probably, if you compared it to the last generation iPhone, not as huge of a leap. The iPhone 13 cameras have also been improved, but yet again, they've been improved somewhat, and the Pro has been improved a lot more. The main wide-angle camera on the iPhone 13 seems to be very similar to what we got on the 12 Pro Max. So it is a larger sensor, it lets in about 47% more light, and it also does have the sensor shift stabilization. All great upgrades, but the Pro just has even bigger sensors with even better specs. Same thing goes for the ultra-wide. So the ultra-wide has been improved on the 13, but it's been improved a whole lot more on the 13 Pro. Kind of getting the trend here. There are other improvements. So they showed off what was called cinematic mode, which is a little bit into the weeds, but essentially what it allows you to do is to cleanly rack focus between subjects. So Ken, I'm gonna go throw something on a fly at you. Can you rack focus the camera? So here, I'm right here. Oh look, Ken just rack focused the camera. Oh look, he rack focused it back. Look at that amazing real world example of what cameras are like. Well, in some small way, you'll be able to do that on the iPhone.
The iPhone's apparently smarter than me because I racked to the thing behind you.
Okay, look, so that's actually one of the big differences. So unlike a traditional camera that we're using here, where Ken is using his hands to control it, this is actually an automatic process. So the iPhone, when you're in cinematic mode, will do its best to determine like, oh, it sees this person and I turn and it will change focus or whatever. You can still manually select it. It's a cool feature. But again, there's a better cinematic mode on the Pro. I feel like a broken record here. Everything is better on the Pro this year. Look, that was one of the...
Everything is funnier when you're not in focus.
Am I still out of focus? Focus the camera, Ken! I'm gonna replace you with an iPhone 13 Pro Max Chungus.
Does that mean I get to keep it?
No! So outside of that, probably the biggest upgrade, honestly, on the iPhone 13 is going to be battery life. The iPhone 12 mini as much as I love this
Terrible.
adorable little phone,
Terrible.
had, let's say, a less than spectacular battery life. And so with the 13 as well as the 13 mini, you're getting more battery life. So the mini is getting an hour and a half more battery life, and the standard iPhone 13 is getting 2.5 more hours of battery life. Do you want to guess what I'm about to say? Go guess what? The Pros also have better battery life, but it's improved by more. Ho-ho! Austin beating the dead horse yet again. Now, the one thing I will say is that thankfully across the entire iPhone range this year, the prices have remained the same. So it's $699 for the mini, $799 for the standard iPhone 13. And at that price, they've actually now given you more storage. So as before, the base models came with 64 gigs of storage. Now it defaults to 128 gigs. So essentially you're getting a roughly $50 price cut for the 128 gig iPhone 13, which is great. I'm not gonna say it, but you know what I'm about to say.
The Pro better.
Yeah, the Pro's better. Yes, thank you, Matt, for completing that sentence. Okay, this video is sponsored by Clean My Mac X. No matter how shiny your Apple product might seem, you still need to keep it running smoothly, and that's where Clean My Mac X comes in. It's an all-in-one package that does a lot. The most popular feature is Smart Scan, which allows you to scan for outdated junk files your system no longer needs to help free up space. Clean My Mac X is more than just a Mac cleaner though. While it helps to build a virtual map of your Mac storage, it also runs a quick malware check and can quickly allow you to optimize your Mac by showing you the processes that are draining performance that you might not even realize are there. It also helps to stay on top of which apps have permissions like camera and microphone access, and allows you to quickly uninstall anything you don't need anymore. Even if you're moving to an Apple Silicon Mac, Clean My Mac X has you covered as it fully supports the new M1. So definitely be sure to go check out Clean My Mac X at the link in the description, and huge shout out to them for sponsoring this portion of the video. So now that we've gone over what's upgraded on the iPhone 13, which is a reasonable amount, but it's very much like an S model year, right? You know, the iPhone 6 to 6S, it looks basically the same. There's some tweaks here, the camera, the battery, but it's very much similar. The Pro is a much more significant step forward. So first of all, they've got 4 colors. There's graphite, gold, silver, and the light blue that they call Sierra Blue, which I personally think looks very nice. It's not like Pro, like I feel like the Pro colors have always been like, it's titanium, alloy, aluminum, or I don't know, whatever. Like, I know they're 3 different things, okay? This is not a very Pro color, but I'm absolutely about it. It has a similar design to last year, although I will say on the standard Pro, the camera modules look absolutely chonktastic. Like I tweeted this earlier, like it's like you're buying a camera and an iPhone comes with it. Like it is absolutely ridiculous. But that being said, guess what? Larger cameras mean that they're better, and especially they're better than the iPhone 13. Okay, so one of the big upgrades is on the screen side. So not only do you have a brighter display again this year, but you also have, like I was saying, that Pro Motion that can go all the way from 10 Hertz up to 120 Hertz. Although, to be fair, the Pro Motion is on both the Pro and the Pro Max. So unlike last year where some features were only on like the Max, the Pro and the Pro Max are essentially identical except for the size of the batteries and the sizes of the screens, which is very nice. Let's talk a little bit about why the 13 Pro, I think, really deserves consideration if you're going to be upgrading this year, which are the cameras. All of the cameras are a major step forward. So first of all, on the telephoto side, something that you're not going to see on the iPhone 13, we now have a 3x telephoto, which is a roughly 77 mil equivalent. That is a big jump. Last year it was like they went from 2 to 2.5x, now it's 3x across the board, which is good, going to be nice. I know Ken specifically uses it to take a lot of his car photography. The telephoto camera, especially with a 3x, to me that's a really nice kind of zone to live in. On top of that, the wide-angle camera is the largest sensor they've ever had. Freaking sweet, awesome, I'm all about it. But you know what, one of the bigger upgrades I think a lot of people are gonna like is the ultra-wide. So last year, all of the iPhone 12s had the same, let's say not great, ultra-wide. Like it was fine in like really good light, but other than that, it
was basically the same as the previous generation one too.
It was rough, right? This time we have not only a much wider aperture on that ultra-wide and a different sensor, but we also have autofocus and macro mode. Now, this is something that I believe the first phone I saw do this was OnePlus. However, this is a big deal. So essentially you can take your macro mode with the ultra-wide, get it right on top of your subject, and get what I think are some really, really striking looking images. It gives you a lot more sort of opportunities to not only go, you know, from macro to super ultra-wide to standard with a large sensor to telephoto. There's a lot to the camera. And again, the Pro and the Pro Max have the upgrades. the iPhone 13 has a regular, slightly improved ultra wide. There's a bunch of other stuff. There's like a bunch of photography modes which allow you to bake, they're not filters, but they allow you to bake different like contrast and color
It gives
into
you
the profile.
Yeah, it gives you control over your base image, basically.
Yeah. So essentially, if you're familiar with like a DSLR or something where you can tweak your picture profile, it seems vaguely similar to that, where you can kind of have that baked in while you take the image, as opposed to taking the the photo and then trying to edit it after the fact. Seems cool. And then there's some big video upgrades. So not only do you have the cinematic mode, but it has been improved. It's basically portrait mode for video. They were very quick on sort of mentioning this, and the actual demo video they showed, it looked a little bit off. This is actually not really a new feature because devices like Samsung's have had this for quite a while. Generally speaking, portrait mode works well in photos. I think in video it's probably going to be like 80% there, especially considering that they very briefly mentioned it. But hey, it's nice to have. You also have all the focus racking stuff. And for people like us, I think we're really excited about something called ProRes. So a lot of the video that we shoot on our professional cameras is shot using the ProRes codec, which just has a lot more data and is going to take a lot more space. But that is something that's going to be coming to the Pro model phones later this year. Now, as far as the prices, they are the exact same. So $999 for the Pro and at $1099 for the Pro Max. They still start with the 128 gig, but you can go all the way up this year to a 1 terabyte iPhone 13 Pro, which I actually think is probably worth it if you're going to be shooting a lot of like ProRes and whatnot.
Yes.
And it's $1,600
Yes.
for the 1 terabyte iPhone 13 Pro Max Chungus Edition.
I can't wait.
Is this your way of asking for an iPhone 13 Pro Max Chungus 1 terabyte edition?
Yes.
So I personally think, if we're just talking about iPhones here, that the iPhone Pro makes a lot more sense. In the past, I've been a little bit sort of iffy on why the Pro deserves the Pro name, because really it's been like a slightly different design, a couple of minor tweaks, and that's it. This year though, there's some real differentiation, especially if you're looking at the standard size iPhone 13 and Pro, which are the exact same size and physical dimensions primarily. For $200 more, you're getting a far better display. You're getting a majorly improved camera setup. These phones have really earned the Pro name in a way that makes the iPhone 13 and the Mini look weak. They look like very minor upgrades, whereas the Pros have gotten all of the good, fun, shiny toys. Speaking of shiny toys, I think one of the things that I was most excited for beyond just purely the iPhones was the new iPad Mini. They finally redesigned the iPad Mini for what feels like the first time in a very, very long time. Now, I know a lot of people might not be a huge fan of the Mini, but those who are, I think, are going to really love this upgrade. It basically is a shrunken down iPad Pro. So you have that same design language, you have a number of colors, including some stuff like purple, gold, and pink and whatnot. But importantly, it now fits in the same size form factor, an 8.3-inch Liquid Retina True Tone 500 Net edition. One thing I do think is a little bit hard to swallow is, I guess, the Mini price tag. So it is now from $400, they've upgraded the price to $500 this time. So if you want to get this new shiny iPad Mini, it starts at $500. But what probably is the thing that is going to excite more people than that is the new Apple Watch Series 7. I love Apple Watches. I have been an Apple Watch user since the very beginning. I use an Apple Watch more than I use an iPhone, right? A lot of times, like this phone kind of sticks around to make sure the Apple Watch works because this is such a better smartwatch than anything that's out there. So before the event, there was a lot of discussion about there would be a much more kind of like, iPad, iPhone 13 style flat design for the watch. I'm very happy to report that that was not correct. This looks very similar, which some people were kind of like complaining on Twitter that that's a bad thing, but personally, I have always liked the look of the Apple Watch. And now we have a much larger display and actually a curved display underneath to sort of match. So it's a 20% larger screen than the Series 6 and a 50% larger than the Series 3. You have a 1.7 millimeter border that goes all the way around, which is 40% thinner. Like, it's pretty much a full screen watch face, which I personally think is a no-brainer, right? I mean, you've got the same size, why would you have any bezel? If you can just make this watch as big as possible without actually making the physical size bigger, why not? We didn't see any of the other things that were rumored for the event, like the MacBooks or AirPods or anything like that. But to me, just kind of putting a little finer point on the entire video, if you were considering upgrading from any iPhone to the iPhone 13 this year, strongly consider that Pro. Yes, you can save a little bit of money by going with the regular iPhone 13. And if you really like the smaller size, the Mini is still, I think, a solid device, which is better this year. As much as I've loved the last year on the Mini, these upgrades that we've seen on the camera and across the iPhone 13 have pretty clearly convinced me to go with the iPhone 13 Pro. We use the cameras for video all the time. We use it obviously for like social. There's a lot that I can see as far as value on that phone. And the fact that it is at the same price and is seeing such a comprehensive upgrade not only makes the iPhone 13 look bad, but I've got to give them props. I mean, they've given us more of everything. So for a regular S model year, I think it's a very solid upgrade. But what do you think? Let me know all about your vicious hate of Apple, Tim Cook, and iPhones in the comments below, or if you actually like it, I'd also would like to hear from that. And make sure to subscribe and ring that ding-a-ling bell for more questionably timed puns about Tim Cook and why you should really buy iPhones that are better.